Well, thanks for joining us today, Jean. What is your full name?
Doris Jean Kaufman Jordan.
Kaufman Jordan. Well, again, thank you for coming today. What was your position and what were your years of service at Braniff?
I started as a hostess stewardess and became a flight attendant, and that was from 1968 to 1982.
So you stayed all the way to the ending days there. So let me ask you, what was your first flight on an airplane before Braniff? What was your first flight on an
I'd
airplane?
never been on one until I got on a Braniff,
Really?
whatever that thing was, Electra.
So did it scare you when you first got on there?
The flight was Little Rock, Fort Smith, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and Dallas. Love field. So yes.
So it did. Yeah, you were just up and down.
It didn't scare me. It just, I'd never flown, and that was kind of, that was the experience I got.
Yeah, so that was exciting. That had to be exciting for sure. The first trip, plus being nervous about just on your first day of the job, huh?
Well, no, I mean that was for my interview.
Oh, this was just for your interview.
But I still had to take the same flight because Braniff didn't fly nonstop to Dallas from Little Rock. So if I had to do that. Yeah. Puddle jump, as we used to call it. I had to
Route 113 was actually what that was called. It also went all the way from Memphis to Denver. With 15 stops in between. But we actually had planes that went all the way to Denver and all the way back to Memphis.
Well, that's where I guess it was Memphis, Little Rock, then it was Fort Smith, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Dallas, and then I guess
Yeah.
And I was an Electra, so.
Yeah, that was perfect for that route. That's for sure. Lots of extra seats, so if you picked up 10 people, then at the next station you could pick up 50, and you'd still be good. Well, that's really cool. What do you remember most about Braniff?
I think one of the things that I loved about Braniff, I loved our uniforms because, especially the pink, I always call them the pajama ones, the pink poochies. I mean, I went to work and we were so comfortable. And we worked for a good airline, but we were just the poochie uniforms were just so comfortable that, I don't know how to describe that. It was, you were like working in your pajamas and you're on a 747.
Right.
It was kind of neat.
Exactly. That is cool. So tell me about your training and the grooming standards that you went through at that time.
Well, I had Jean Duncan and what was the other lady's name? My mind is the dime quarter lady.
Yeah, was she had blonde hair?
No, the lady who's so famous for. She just passed away.
Harriet Monroe Francis.
No, the one that was so famous. She had been a model in New York.
Yes. Wait a minute. I know who you're talking about now.
My mind is just in that. I should have thought about that before I got here.
Well, anyway, Jean Duncan.
Jean Duncan was one of them, and then who the lady was. I thought the training. I got there. I lived in a little small town, 29,000 people.
What city was that?
Pine Bluff.
Oh, Pine. That's right. We talked about that.
Yes,
Goodness,
and so I actually was living in Little Rock when I walked with somebody, to the bank. I think I've told you that I walked with somebody to the bank for their interview. Yeah. I had no idea what they were even interviewing for. They said, go with me on lunch for this interview. Mm-hmm. Then the guy said, you're next. I said, no, sir, I'm not next. I just came with Ruth Ann, to make sure she was okay during the... So I said, I'm sorry, I don't want to be late for lunch. So he insisted and, actually kind of handed me a ticket. He said, well, you think you'd have time on Monday to come talk to me? I said, where? And he said, Dallas. I said, so anyhow.
But yours was a total, absolute fate.
Oh, it was a fluke. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and then.
So, had you ever wanted to be a flight attendant or even thought about it?
Never crossed my mind.
Wow.
Never been on an airplane. Never thought about it. I actually always had wanted to do something in the medical field. So I always really wanted to be a doctor. My brother is a doctor. But I wanted to be a doctor long before he was. But anyhow, I had kind of got a job after high school, I guess, trying to kind of really decide what I wanted to do. But I would have. So anyhow, I get to the interview at the Hostess College, which I now found out had just been open. And I sat there all day with 40 lovely ladies, beautiful women.
Uh-huh.
And he calls me in because when I accepted to go, my mother said, this will be perfect. You'll be able, as soon as your interview's over, because you don't won't last for long. You probably won't get that job anyhow, probably. But anyhow, you can go get a taxi, take some money, and go to Neiman's. Because here we're from small, And she said, go to Neiman's and walk around and, tell me how all this is.
Yeah.
So I was the last person he interviewed. I counted there was 40 of us.
Wow.
I don't know how, because anyhow, I walk in there and he weighs me. He said, oh, you weigh 110. Is that about normal? I said, yeah, maybe a pound or two off either way, And he said, I forgot what else he asked me, but he said, can you start 2 weeks from now? I said, start what? He said, training to be a stewardess or hostess for Braniff. And I said, sir, remember I told you in Little Rock? I just came with a friend. He said, you're hired if you want the job.
Funny. You still thought they were just wanting to talk to you.
Yeah, I did.
Now that's good.
And I didn't get to go to Neiman's. I had sat in the hostess college lounge, that big room, for how many hours? 6 or so.
6, yeah.
With no food.
Yeah, that sounds about like an airline interview.
So anyhow, back then was nothing but payphones, and so I had to wait to get back to Little Rock to call my parents and said, those people want me to be there in 2 weeks. My mother said, you're kidding. I said, no. So then I get there, and then after about a week of being there, we had a payphone at the host college, and they allowed you after a week or something, you could call your family or something. So I called my parents and said, because I'm getting this call, they allowed us to make one call or something, like we were in jail or something. Right. So, I said, they said, how's it going? I said, do not rent out my room. They said, why? And I said, I don't think I'm going to make this. I said, these girls are all so smart and so beautiful. I don't think I've got a chance in this. Mother said, oh, you're going to be just fine. Just hang in there. I'm sure she was going, yeah. But anyhow, you hang in there, and I made it. I passed.
There you go. See?
And I would have never quit, Brenda. I would have.
Yeah. Till retirement, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, retirement had changed when I was flying to 70.
Yeah.
When, I think when I first started flying, you had to sign something saying you leave at 32. But some of that changed. All of that changed during having babies, and a lot of that changed while I was a flight attendant.
Right. You were during the
so
golden
yes,
period.
I could have worked to 70, but just think, by the time I was 70, that would have been only a few years ago.
Yeah.
So, we have girls right now that didn't come to our meeting. They're still flying for American, and they're in China on layover. Yeah. And they're close to my age. So people now are flying forever.
Way later.
So I probably would have too if my health hadn't been. That's usually why people quit, is the health.
The walking. I'm sure the walking
or the lifting.
I guess that keeps you younger though too at the same time. It has a dual effect there. With the walking.
I really loved the job. I really did. I enjoyed it. Once I kind of did it, I thought, this is kind of neat, So you see, I'm not the doctor. I kind of.
So what was the first jet, pure jet you were on? Probably the Bach 111 or something like that, or 727?
I know I got called out. Once you graduate, you get called out at midnight. I can't remember. Bach 111 was my least favorite airplane. That thing, I swear, it was like a tank.
Yeah, it was.
I couldn't stand that airplane, so when they would call me out for that, I don't remember. I did get called out at midnight, and I'm sure I went to Lubbock or Amarillo somewhere in the middle of the night.
Sounds right.
But that was my least favorite airplane. My favorite being the 747.
Yeah, absolutely. So were there members of management or other colleagues that you admired? Someone that really stood out that you, or any group, or any people that you really thought about?
I never even saw Hardy Lawrence. In 14 years.
That's rare. Usually.
Yeah, that's right. See, I never even saw him. One morning I was told at Love Field, when that rotunda thing, I had got there about 6 o'clock for our flight to leave at 7 or whatever, and the gate agent said, "Oh, you just missed Mr. Lawrence. He was walking through the with his pajamas, in his pajamas and his smoking jacket, or whatever they used to call it back then." He said he just walked around, did an observation, and walked around everything and said hi to everybody. He said, "You just missed him." That's the closest I ever got to him.
And what CEO would ever go around doing that? Checking things and looking. They just don't do that today. like that were hands-on.
He has got it. He's kind of like some people. You either loved him or you hated him. There was no. I don't have any ill will against that guy.
Yeah.
But boy, but there's people who just think he
was
the evil guy.
Killed 90 people or but and then there's other, you talk to others and they know that he did try his best and he did. One of the things that we've had recently, what you see here is just a few of the more than 1,000 boxes of Braniff legal files that have been returned to us. And in there you will find the full story of what Lawrence really tried to do to keep and make sure that Braniff survived deregulation. He tried. Yeah. Really sad that according to these files, the attorneys told Mr. Lawrence that if he did not make some sort of action or plan to combat the onslaught by the major carriers, Braniff would have to file bankruptcy by November 1979.
Really?
Yes, that's how precarious things were, because it was literally an onslaught from American, Delta, United at nearly every point we had. Remember, we were a heartland carrier in South America. We were surrounded. All these carriers wanted that Central America business that we had, and they started taking it. And so,
I guess none of us knew that. So,
No, and that was boardroom stuff. I mean,
That's
why
right.
would you know it?
Yeah.
And executives back then didn't talk about stuff like they do now. And there were just so many things that we've learned that in these boxes.
In my understanding, then they brought in Casey, and then the CFO was murdered, and they've never even, that's still a cold case. And then they brought in Putman.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, what? I mean.
Yeah. Well, and interesting, even with him, that was one of the point. There were like 4 things that Braniff could have done. They could have stayed the same, expand to grow to try to become as big, or become a low-cost carrier. I'm sorry, the 3 things. So those were the 3 key things that they could have done.
Stayed the same would have been what I was doing, because we were doing a good job with what.
But you were in a regulated environment. Once it was deregulated, it was open fair. And that's what happened. All the big carriers just started taking Braniff's routes. American had, Sabre system. They had that where they could book American passengers all the way through on both, say Dallas to Chicago. All right, so Americans started booking passengers on both ends of the system. So it cut off Braniff's feed. See what I'm saying? And they did this on routes all over the system. All over the system.
I guess I'd forgot that if I knew that.
Yeah, and most people didn't.
Yeah.
You have to look at the statistics from the CAB, and it'll show you how our market share dropped throughout, specifically from 1978 to 1982. With the beginning of deregulation. It's because these other big
we had
carriers.
a lot of help from American too. The Sabre, booking on, taking on our people, calling on. I've talked to people who said they went to American, and they've talked to people who said, I was one of the people who called and filled up that airplane full of fake people.
Right, and that was all that. There was actually a court case over that, and they settled with Braniff for $45 million in 1985. Yes.
But who got that $85 million?
Braniff Inc. Braniff 2.
Braniff 2.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's who settled, and that was kind of the story of that. So American did have to pay for, those activities, and even looking in these files, there were a lot of them that were true. It's unfortunate, but they were. So that's kind of one of those things when we talk about Harding Lawrence, that you've got to really sit and look at what was going on and what he was trying to tell everyone. Look, we have to grow to expand, and if we take and do these routes that can help support our main routes, then maybe we can stave off these carriers. But when you go into a city like Dallas, Fort Worth, or Chicago, and you've got an airline like American that has a massive presence and a lot of money,
and a big base there, probably too.
Correct.
Big base,
right? And massive amounts of money. It's called city power. How much you can control that city. American, United, Delta, they had it. They had it, while all the smaller carriers, they're all gone. The only one that made it was Northwest.
And Southwest.
Southwest is kind of an anomaly, but Southwest got their business from Braniff.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they took our Texas business.
Sure.
So, unfortunate. But, now we know more about the truth. And
well, and I'm glad you told me, because I do try to take up for him. Some of those people.
Sure,
I know a lot of the Braniff sites. I just let anybody on. They don't ask if they work for Braniff, and so you don't know who these people are. But I always try to take up for him and say,
Sure. Yeah, and a lot of people, I think, are starting to listen and say, oh, that makes sense. I've tried to put this information out there a little bit at a time. I don't want to overload people, but I want them to get the truth. That man, he was a good man. He meant well. No one would live at his office, but someone that was crazy about that company. Yeah. He said, "Braniff is my vocation."
Now was he fired, or did he walk out the back door and quit?
He actually decided that it was time for him to go. He had a disagreement with the board over the path that Braniff was to take. They wanted to try this low cost carrier thing, which, as with later on with Casey and later on with Putnam, that's what they did. And that failed as well. Lawrence knew it would fail. That's why they didn't pick it in the beginning.
Yeah.
Of the three things that they could have done, the only one that showed the most promise was to expand. And he had 6 studies done by 6 different global companies. What can Braniff do to fight off this onslaught of these mega carriers when the system is deregulated? They all said, except one, to do the expansion. They said that's the only hope you have, the fourth one was to merge.
And I still haven't understood why we didn't get a merger.
Because no one wanted at that point
cute girls in cute Poochie outfits.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't want. That's a good one. They didn't want at that time. One, a lot of people didn't have money. 2, they still frowned upon mergers. They didn't know how the DOJ was going to look at that. Are these mergers, are they going to be, cut down on competition? Is this defeating the whole purpose of deregulation? And so they were leery about it.
Didn't Harding ask Pan Am to merge, and Pan Am turned him down?
That was 1970, so that was many years earlier.
But look how proactive he was.
Yes.
I mean, just how forward thinking he was to think that those 2 airlines probably would have been a really good match. We had the center, and they had the outside. That was a good match, I think.
It was a great match because it would have fed the South American system. But at that time, the government was not wanting Pan Am to have so much power, because they basically created international aviation, the airline industry, and they were trying to diffuse Pan Am's power. And we, at Braniff, know that Pan Am's power was at times used against us. So. They were a very powerful company, and the government was trying to diffuse that a little bit. And that's why they started letting other airlines like Braniff, Northwest, Delta, start flying to Europe and internationally from inside the country, from Dallas, Fort Worth. And Pan Am, was still supposed to serve the coasts, basically. And it kind of ended up spelling the end for Pan Am, because it started diffusing a lot of their business. Why would you need to go from the coast unless you live on the coast? So now Pan Am, back to the feed thing. So if you've got all these Braniff cities feeding to New York to get on Pan Am to go to New York, and now all of a sudden Braniff's going to Dallas, Fort Worth to London, you don't need Pan Am anymore. So it's kind of what happened to Braniff domestically. Yeah. And once you cut off the domestic feed, what does that do? It starts cutting off Braniff's international feed.
Still sad.
Yeah, very sad. So good stuff. But anyway, I've got to actually have what happened? There we go. I've got a program I'm going to start doing and traveling around in some of the schools and discussing this very thing about it's called Braniff, Deregulation, and the Mist That Followed. That's what I'm doing. I had one of our donors wanted me to do this, and I told her I would do it. So to get this out so business students can understand what a unique and bizarre situation Braniff was in compared to the other carriers.
Yeah.
But all the nationals were in danger. They were all in danger. And as you see, the only one that made it was Northwest, and that was because they got some key international routes that the CAB told Braniff they would get. So in looking at these files and looking at the history, that was, again, in the Pacific and the Atlantic, where we set this stuff up at the behest of the CAB. They didn't give us Tokyo. They didn't give us Boston, London. And Lawrence said, if you don't give us those routes, we're pulling out. It wasn't because they weren't making money. It was because he couldn't keep those. He did not get those routes that would give them the full support that they needed to keep that going.
We had lots of people go to Northwest Orient. Evidently that was a good airline.
And so Northwest, they got both of those routes. They're the national carrier that survived. All the rest of them are gone.
Yeah.
None of them survived.
And then they didn't survive. They merged.
Went to Delta.
Yeah.
Many years later. So really, you can say they were the only national that survived. Okay, so let me go on here. You never flew for MAC, you said that,
no.
Or LED charters. Did you ever fly?
I flew one LED charter because that we didn't get to fly that. I picked up time one month. I had weather things.
Yeah.
And I picked up a Lima charter.
Yep.
And it was a layover in Lima, and then it was like a 3-day trip or something down there back, and I don't know, and we got to lay over, so we got to do the shopping and the buy all the furry llama things. That's the only South America I did.
Right. The alpaca stuff.
Yeah, the alpaca. That's right. Yes.
So and so everyone will know, Gene, that is the Latin America division. That was our South America, Central and South America division. That we flew, and our flight attendants could not fly those routes down there because of nationalistic rules that we had to hire our ground personnel and our flight attendants with locals in those countries. Pilots, however, were exempted from that, and our pilots did fly those routes. So that was kind of a unique situation that still goes on there today in a lot of cases, is the way I understand it.
Well, American, all those people now fly. American and Delta, everybody flies to South America.
Are they going down there more now?
It's domestically now.
I believe I think there's a count system now that they kind of use where certain, they have to have some, obviously hire locally too, as well as.
I guess so, yes, but I've
things were way more restricted.
People that's come to some of our, parties or some of the fly-ins and some of that stuff said, "Oh, I'm flying Ecuador this month or Rio or something, and I'm with American, and we've got the beds and all that kind of stuff." And so that's how I've kind of found that out, is people coming to either our parties or the fly-ins or some of that stuff.
Right. Things were so more restrictive back then than they are now, for sure, definitely. Did you ever fly on Braniff's Boeing 747, the first one, November 601 BN?
I did.
Okay, and what did you do on that one?
Well, the first thing I did is when they had announced that they were going to have it in, 70 or something, they put a great big box in the hostess lounge and said, "Here, throw some, put your name in there, and we're going to draw some names, and we're going to take the airplane all over the Dallas-Fort Worth area, maybe down and around, and we're going to show it off." I won one of those tickets. Because my airplane was late, and I just sit there and kept going. I just kept putting my name on it, so I got a call and said, "You get." So I was on the one, not the one that was probably but the one where they gave all the employees the ride all over
the courtesy flights. They did it. It was like December 70 or early January 71.
That's right. Yeah, because the first flight was January 15th. Of 71, right?
To Honolulu, yeah. That is
was it
correct.
70 or 71?
71, yeah.
71.
It was January 15, 71. It was delivered January 5, 71.
Yeah, that's where I was thinking.
Mm-hmm. So they did a whole bunch of stuff between the 5th and the 15th. The promos, and Ed Acker had his little flight where he flew important people out and around. They had a dinner and all this kind of stuff. And
I never got, but what I got, at least I got to do that one. And then, because I was kind of in that seniority of 68, and when they started putting 16 flight attendants on that big old airplane, I was able to kind of hold some of the vacation things or, some stuff like that. And so I got, especially in the wintertime and some of I forgot what it was, sometimes I was able to pick up one of those vacation patterns or something. And I got where from the start I could fly Honolulu and flew it a lot.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic.
Now,
beautiful
people say,
plane.
Yeah, beautiful. Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Sorry they got rid of it. I thought that was a mistake. I mean, that airplane was it was so easy to work and so friendly and such a good layout. It really just was an excellent airplane, I think.
Yeah, and truly, probably, if there was a contest for airplane interiors, I think that one would probably win. Yeah.
Well laid out. Easy to work.
What was your favorite Braniff airplane?
747.
Yeah, that's what I thought. What did you think about Braniff's Concorde service? I don't think did you serve on that at all?
I walked. We were on the way, I think, to get on a 747, and some of the people said, "Oh, the Concorde's here." So we walked in, and I was, I'm only 5'6", and there it was like a little bitty plane, and we walked in and kind of walked through and talked to some of the people who were there and said, "Oh, that's real cute." And we walked down. That's the only time I ever saw it, when we walked in.
Did you notice how small the windows were?
We did it so quick because we were just walking down the Concourse. Somebody said, "Oh, the Concourse!" So we all we were running in there real quick because we had a plane to catch, and so we didn't stay very long. I never flew it, but I do on our Facebook group. Every time I see a Concorde article or a picture or landing or anything, I always post it for everybody because everybody loved that airplane.
Yeah.
That was probably some people's favorite airplane over a 747. They love that airplane.
They love that.
So I always try to give them all the pictures and stuff they love. So yeah, I do.
And I'll tell you on that one, that was another big surprise we had in these legal files was that we actually did pretty good on Concorde for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to tell the whole story because I'm supposed to be writing an article for a magazine for it, which will give the full story, but it was not a loser for Braniff by any means compared to what the media was saying that. The media didn't know.
The media and the government,
Yeah, there you go, exactly. Did you ever assist any celebrities? Did you have any celebrities on your flights?
I had tons of celebrities, but assist, that would be like put them in a wheelchair. What would assist mean?
Well, like, in other words, you escorted them somewhere, or they talked to you, or...
Oh, I talked to them.
Like who? Do you remember?
Well, I was walking up and down the aisle one day, and this guy said, "You got a few minutes to sit down and talk?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I'm Bill Dillard." I said, "I'm from Arkansas."
If you're from Arkansas, you know who Bill Dillard is.
I said, "I know exactly." Shook his head and he said, "I've been watching you. I'd like to make you a job offer." I said, "Sir, I'm at work here.
I like what I do."
He said, I think you'd be such a good buyer for Dillard's department stores.
Wow.
My first credit card was a Dillard's. At 18 years old, I got a Dillard's credit card. Yeah. Yes, and so he was so, and he offered me a job, and I said, "Sir, I really do like flying, and I enjoyed this." He said, "Well, if you ever change your mind, you just call and ask for me." And I said, "Thank you," and I got up and just kept doing my job. So, but Stanley Marcus was the same way. That was the nicest. I mean,
he was great.
He always sat on 727. That's where we had him a lot, I guess, going to New York. He'd always sit on that row right behind the galley. And he didn't ride first class. Bill Dillard was in coach too. Yeah. You never saw those really wealthy people who could have afforded.
That's why they were wealthy.
That's right. But they were that generation, Ben.
Yeah, true. Like my dad.
Right.
Yeah, my parents, the only reason my dad ever flew first class was because the Federal Reserve Bank paid for it.
That's right.
But when we went, we flew coach. They weren't going to pay for that.
So you did one time, because I used to have Royal. What was the coach's name?
Oh, Darryl Royal.
Darryl Royal, and the guy from Arkansas they were so famous same time. What's that? Anyhow, you know who I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about.
So I used to have both of them on a lot. So one time, Darryl Royal, what was the guy's name in Arkansas? Arkansas people are screaming at this, going, "Gene, you know this."
Yeah, they're going to get us.
You know this. Your family still lives in Arkansas. Okay. So anyhow, Darryl Royal came on one day, and he sat down and coach. I said, "Coach Royal, you always fly coach." He said, "I know somebody's bought me a ticket. I get to go first class."
Hey, there you go.
Darryl Royal, the coach, said that, and he was still the coach. And he said, "I get to fly first class today."
Now, that's a good story. Jim.
Yeah,
that really is. Okay, so what was your favorite Braniff ad campaign? Did you pay a lot of attention?
Flaunt it.
When you got it?
When you got it. I still couldn't say that.
Exactly.
Just to be funny, because just to be.
It's a slogan that never gets old.
That's right.
And it's a very unique slogan, and it was something that we pretty much made up. I haven't been able to find any history of it before us.
Was it a Mary Wells?
It was George Lewis.
Oh, okay.
Wells had already left. She left December 168 to start her own firm.
Okay.
And she had gotten TWA's account, so it was either she had to drop one or the other. She couldn't have both.
Oh, okay.
So she dropped Braniff. Braniff Harding told her, go on. This is a chance for you to go big. And obviously she did.
Mm-hmm.
So then came George Lois. He was really big. He died recently, actually, and I kept in touch with him for quite a while. He was really huge in advertising as well, very, very well known. And he's the one that created that "When You Got It, Flaunt It" campaign. Yeah. It had a little bit of a mixed connotation. Some people thought Braniff was kind of pontificating. Some people liked it, some people didn't. But according to...
That was 50-50 on the airplane too, probably.
Yeah.
People thought we were kind of
haughty.
Bragging. Bragging, feeling better than everybody else. It did. I kind of liked it. But we did hear that from people. Well, y'all think you're better than everybody else.
Well, in a lot of ways we were.
Well, I guess we shouldn't have told people that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they were just jealous of our on-time record, which always tended to be, especially in the 60s and 70s.
And our beautiful airplanes, and we
perfectly kept, generally.
And now when you look back and see everybody's uniform, you go,
well, we
no, I didn't mean to.
Well, we reverted back to what Mary Wells changed in 1965.
Yeah.
With the end of the plane, and it's kind of sad, It's cheaper to be bland than it is to be glam.
And I'm sure I'd have been happy in a navy blue suit with a little red scarf around my neck.
Well,
I'd probably would been just as happy, but I'm sure glad I was part of that. I
era.
was not a Halston fan. Did not like that uniform.
50-50 on
yes,
that. Yeah, 50-50.
You had to have the right coloring. I didn't have the exact coloring for that.
Yeah, I understand.
I mean, there were some pretty pieces. I agree.
People liked that it was comfortable and they could wad it up and throw it in their suitcase.
That's right. Yeah. Now there was some pretty pieces, but if it had been another color beside
the brown and beige,
the brown and beige was just.
But it was so 70s. It was so classic. Then it was just 70s.
It looked good. The brown looked good on the leather, but it didn't look so good on everybody's.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Gotcha. Okay, so to the sad day, where were you on May 12, 1982?
I was not working that day.
Okay, that's interesting.
And I was somewhere, and somebody knew me, and they said, "Gene, did you know Braniff went bankrupt today?" And I go, "What?" I mean, I started crying immediately. I cried for a week. I'm not kidding. I cried for at least a week. Non-stop crying. Non-stop. Just because I wasn't in a good marriage.
Right.
I had two small children.
Right.
And so it was just devastating to me.
Right.
And it still is. And it's still when I think about it, I sometimes it's still.
When you drive through DFW, does it make you think of it? Especially when you go to Braniff's terminal.
I haven't been. Well, I don't fly. I haven't been on an airplane since 18. But coming over here, I can see him in the air. I can see him on 30 this morning when it was pouring rain, and it just.
So let me tell you a little trip to make when you have a chance. Drive through DFW, go and drive through Braniff's terminal. It's still very much like it was
now,
the day we left.
What was the number back then? B?
2W, and now it's B.
W. Okay.
2W, 2S. And now it's called B or Bravo. They haven't put in all those parking lots. It's the same parking lots that we had.
And it's American now?
It's American now, yes. It's unfortunate.
And is that where the chapel is?
That is where the chapel is, and that's where we'll be putting in the 9 new plaques. Actually, they're going in this week. That will debut at the conference this next Saturday. So good stuff. But do that. Take the little drive. Just drive through there. It costs nothing to go through there, and you'll see.
But you have to park and get out too, and all that stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you can get out too. Sure, you can. But if you drive down through there, you can still see the stanchion where the big London sign was for the departures and all this. It's so cool. You can see remember how the porte-cochere stuck out on the road there, and it had our BI on it. You can still see where that was. It's still the brown color. It hadn't been painted white.
And 2B, 2W was the north side. It was north side?
West side.
West side, okay. I remember it was.
Yeah, we were on west side. We had the whole west side. And it's interesting that all of that infrastructure on the west side now, the connector buildings, all that stuff was all from our master plan. It all has been built now. All has been built. And they followed our master plan.
And who wrote the master plan?
Braniff did.
Braniff or Harlan Lawrence, or what?
Management facilities.
Management.
A coordinated effort. Okay. What did you do that summer then, Gene? After you did, what was your thinking? Did you think Braniff was going to come back?
Well, I had two small children.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of just took the summer off and was with them, and and just kind of spent some time with them. Even though I used to have neighbors who they didn't know I even had a job. One day when I told them I had to quit sitting out in the middle of the street in Irving and talk. I had to go to work, and they said, "You don't work? I've never seen you go to work for." I said, "Oh, I'm a stewardess," or what it was I said at that time.
So you were at home a lot, yeah.
Yes, I was home a lot. So then I took off, and then after the first of the year, I think I took off. And then after the first year, I kind of started looking for a job. I kind of took the summer off, kind of took the year off, and because I was devastated. I was in a bad situation, Ben.
Yeah, I remember.
A very abusive husband, and it was just a bad situation.
I remember.
And so, and part of it was that he hated Braniff so much. He hated...
Because it took attention away from him, perhaps?
Probably, yes. I mean, because whatever it was. And so so I kind of, tried to work on that a little bit. We finally divorced a few years later and stuff. But, I finally found a commission-only job. Every job I'd apply for, they say, well, you'll be doing data entry all day. And I thought,
yeah. That's tough for a flight attendant.
That's right, in my heart. Because before that, I had worked at a bank doing data entry. I could have done that. But after you've worked for Braniff or even, I don't care who, you're different. You're different
correct.
now.
That's right.
That's right. So
you're programmed differently, and doing something that's not equal to or greater than that is not going to work for very long.
So I guess I lucked into a job, kind of like I lucked into Braniff. I lucked into walking into a staffing agency.
Yeah.
That was opening a brand new staffing agency in Las Colinas, and they hired me as one of their sales consultants, and I stayed there 16 years, and then I owned my own staffing agency for 13 years.
Wow.
So I stayed in staffing commission only for 27 and a half years.
Wow. Well, that's fantastic.
So see, that job, I could before then, me sell something, call somebody on the phone and say, "Hi, would you need an executive assistant?" Or, "I have a really nice HR manager here."
Yeah.
Hiring?
Makes you the perfect candidate.
Yeah,
then.
but I would have been horrified before Braniff to pick that phone up.
But that gave you the confidence now.
Yes, and I was very successful at that. I did really well.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Absolutely. Okay, so a couple of flight attendant only. Just one question because we already talked about the second one. Tell us about first class service. Did you work a lot of first class or did you do coach?
I did mostly coach. But
did you like coach better? Less?
Well, it's kind of seniority.
Yeah, true.
Yes. That's right. Because especially, I only worked first class on 747. I bet I didn't do it 3 or 4 times in all the years.
Geez.
Yeah, because all the senior mamas were up there, and I was happy. I was in the back of the bus because I was going to London on Wednesday and Frankfurt on Wednesday, and I didn't really care. But but the New York ones, I worked the New York ones some because I love that, and I still talk about, that to my son or to my family. If I see something, I say, "Oh, we used to serve, do that." And my kids think I'm, they don't understand it because they were just they were young kids when this whole thing happened.
Sure.
But they don't even remember Braniff. They don't remember me anything. My son says his only memory. He said, "I remember when you used to walk out the door, Mom, and you'd leave us with Grandma." But when I'd get home, they called me Grandma for 3 days, and then I walked out the door again. So they really never called me Mom. They called me Grandma because they liked her so much.
Hey, at least they had their grandma though.
That's right. Yes,
that's a good thing.
That's right.
If you can't have Mama, if you got Grandma, you're doing okay.
Yeah, and she spoiled her. Yeah, she did.
Yeah, that's cool. That's it. Do you have anything that you would like to tell the audience real quick? Anything?
How much I miss Braniff.
Proud to be a BIer. That's the thing.
And glad in 2013 I found the Clip Bs.
Very true.
Because I had no idea. And for everybody who sees this, I hope that you'll find out that Braniff, especially the flight attendant group, is very active.
Very much so.
The ground crew is still at least meeting, but we're still very active. We have 751 on our Facebook group. We only have about 363, I think, is what paid dues this time. So we're a little bit down on that, but still Still, yes. I mean, we were at 500 something 10 years ago when I became president, or 9 years ago, whenever it was.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah.
So yes, but see,
COVID was rough. We lost about 400 plus members in the Braniff Retirement Club.
You're kidding.
From illness during that period, which we attributed the majority was COVID. During that period, and it was very sad. I mean, we had about 1,100 members, I think, in 2020, and we've got about 700-800 now, maybe.
We've got 363 that are paying dues.
Yeah.
But you see, we have 751. Somebody said at one point we had 2,500.
Oh, I don't doubt it at all. Yeah.
That's what someone said. We had flight attendants. We asked somebody, and then one thing we have an in memoriam that's been on our website for a long time, and I think we're about to move. Catherine's kind of working on that, but she says there's 800 or 900 that we know of that have passed away
easily.
Now that's in that would be from day one to now.
Yeah, of course.
Because Sue Golden and people have kept that up all the years, and Catherine's taken over. So we know we've probably missed 100 or something. Because people, when I found it, I knew somebody in my class passed away, and it wasn't on there. So I know we've missed some, but we've lost about a third.
Yeah. Well,
or more.
And it's unfortunate. A lot of people, the families, either didn't know about their close connection to Braniff or whatever. Because I'm finding out that we've lost them 2 or 3 weeks later, or a year later sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And the families, and I'll contact them after I find this out. And they'll say, well, oh gosh, we didn't know anything about that. And I'm like, well, I sure hate to hear that.
I didn't know anything about Braniff, period. It was one of those things. I had worked on my class reunion in Arkansas.
Yeah.
And so they had said, hey, will somebody get on Facebook? And I said, I'm not going to do Facebook. That's dangerous. I'm not going to do it and all that kind of stuff. So somebody kind of taught me to kind of look for people on Facebook. So I said, I can do that because I've had a lot of search experience with the staffing agency. So I have a lot of, and I love research. That's kind of one of my favorite things. Yeah. So I found the Braniff Retirement Club, which was Elizabeth. And there was I didn't find it.
Us first.
That's right, absolutely. And it was actually Sally Campbell who told me about the Clip Bs. She said, "Are you a Clip B?" And I said, "Oh no, ma'am, I can't be a Clip B. I didn't retire from Braniff." And said that was a retirement thing. So see, I didn't put the connection. I didn't retire. I got fired.
Let go.
Let go.
Terminated by circumstance.
Whatever it was,
exactly.
Whatever it was. So yes, so.
Well, Jean, hey, listen, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day. It was absolutely wonderful.
Well, I enjoyed it talking to you.
All right, thank you.
I think this.